What's up, guys? Welcome to the Granger Smith Podcast, episode 28. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Special episode, as you can see, I have a different background behind me today. If you're watching, I'm not in my bus Wildflower. That is right over here, part next door. I'm at what we're calling the Yee shop, where we are restoring my old 74 GMC, the one I used to drive back in high school. And we started a YouTube series on this truck just recently because of this whole shutdown thing. We needed some stuff to do, and we had a couple bus drivers, Butch and Bull, that are incredible mechanics, incredible guys, and they helped me decide to start restoring this truck, right? And it's actually sitting right behind the camera. And the YouTube series, it got really good engagement. It took off, and it became a new passion of mine, for one. It became something that I've absolutely loved to do, not only from the mechanical standpoint of it, and not only from the standpoint of taking something that was once dilapidated in Mom's barn and turning it into good again, making it new again. There's something special about that. But all that being said, there's also the fact of just the sentimental value. This is Dad's truck. This was my truck when I was a kid. And it's been so fun watching it come back together. So I decided to set up the podcast today in the shop before we get to work on it and bring in Butch and Bull. We're going to be my special guest today. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Yee Apparel, our apparel company that me and my brother started back in 2011. And we just celebrated this past Friday, Yee Day, which we put out a new line of Yee apparel between me and my wife Amber for the women's line. And then we sent a portion of our profits to Meals on Wheels to support families in need of meals during this crazy time in the world. How are you guys doing, by the way? Comment below, let me know. Let's get the pulse of the podcast listeners, how you're doing. This podcast comes out every Monday morning early. Supposed to be for drive time. Now, not really anybody's driving. Not as many people are driving to work. So it's more of a listening at home type podcast, if you will. Even though, I've been driving a lot lately. I've been driving between my house and the Yee farm and going to see Mom. So I'm not necessarily going out in public or going to stores and whatnot, but I've been driving a lot. Gas is cheap. It is good. It's good to be driving. It's good to get out in the sunshine. So all that being said, thank you for the support. Thank you for following us at Yee Apparel. You could find me, if you want a personal shout out from me, you can go to cameo.com and you could find me on there, and I can give you a personal video shout out. Happy birthday, congratulations, hope you're doing well. What's up to one of your friends or kids or spouses. And so that's been a really cool way for me to stay engaged until we start touring again, which I can't wait to start touring again. Usually these podcasts, I'm hammering the tour, the cities we're going to, and we're not doing any of that. We're sitting here. So you could follow me, Instagram, Granger Smith, YouTube, Granger Smith, and then The Smiths, which is our family vlog channel, which we have so much passion about. And then there's this podcast. So comment below and let me know the pulse of how you're feeling. Ask me questions. Sometimes I go through these podcasts and actually answer questions as well. Without further ado, let me get out here, Butch and Bull. Welcome to the Granger Smith Podcast. Yeah. All right, I got the boys. Bull Shipley. Your Twitter is at Bull Shipley.
Pretty easy to remember.
And yours is at Butch Steeler.
Steeler.
Now, Butch, you got to change your profile pic to something that's your face on it so people will actually know it's you.
Well, they pretty much...
He got to hold that mic. There you go.
They pretty much know by reading my stuff that it's me.
Okay.
I'll change
Fair
it
enough.
for crying out loud.
So the reason I got these guys,
looks at me.
I got to tell y'all, the reason I got these guys is because we started this little series, restoring Earl's truck, And I brought you guys in because you're mechanical geniuses.
I wouldn't go that
Now
far.
everyone, these guys are the first to say they are not mechanics. They are truck drivers, bus drivers. And when you're a bus driver on tour, the good ones at least, have to learn how to be a mechanic. Because if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're stuck in the middle of Iowa on the highway and you break down, you don't want to. You got to be able to have some kind of idea of how to fix a lot of problems, so you're not waiting on a tow truck for 3 hours, which is gonna put you late to the show.
Right, and we don't have the luxury of calling the company and saying, "Oh, just bring me a new bus." So I can't. We can't just sit there and turn the steering wheel. We have to get the bus moving.
So these guys, y'all ever been on a podcast before?
No.
All right. Step one. These mics are super directional, so
No.
you gotta point your mouth right in there.
Okay.
So
Right here.
yeah,
All
right there. Okay. So, but what happened was I got them on this Restore Earl's Truck show, and then people started loving you guys because of your stances on the world, and so that's why I wanted you to bring you on today, because on the truck video we get all these comments that's asking you guys questions about the world and your stance on life. And honestly, we're not going to sit here and just talk constantly about the world while we're restoring the truck. We got business to do. So I thought, let's go ahead and set the old microphones up in here right behind the truck. We're staring at it, and we could answer these questions now. So, Bull, do you have some of those, or at least off the top of your head?
Yeah. So on YouTube, there are people asking Butch a lot of things. So I'll start with one. What's your stance on gun control? What do you think about gun control?
Well, I think you ought to control your guns, and I think everybody ought to own one. If you don't want one, don't buy one. Simple as that. Never seen one jump up and run and kill anybody without somebody holding on to it.
All right. Now, number two, first lesson was speak right to the mic. Second lesson is our friends over at YouTube are going to hit us if they catch a couple keywords. So let's not say the name of the virus, for one. And then we'll call them, what are we going to call those? We'll call them water guns.
Pew-pews.
Pew-pews. We'll call them pew-pews.
Pew-pew.
Other than that,
Okay, I forgot about the YouTube stuff.
Yeah. It's not that big a deal.
All right. Okay, well...
Butch, what do you think about the state of the world? Let's say that.
Well, there's a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
I think that people have gone off the rails worrying about things they shouldn't be worrying about. People are so scared of their shadow, they let anybody tell them what to do or what they should think. And they do. Sheep. People, I'm probably one of them.
At some level, we all are. I mean, the Bible talks about, he calls us sheep. Jesus calls us sheep. Something like, don't quote me on this, it's like 100 times.
It's over and over again.
Over and over. He doesn't say we're lions or tigers or
Right.
or even
Right.
donkeys or cows. He says we're sheep.
Right. I'm sure there's quite a few donkeys in there, but
Yeah. We start with being sheep.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you
know,
say to all those people that go, but Butch, there's people dying out there. This is serious.
That's true, and we're all going to die.
Yeah.
At some point, we're all going to die. I mean, you're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. I'm not guaranteed. I get up out of this chair, I could keel over.
Yeah.
So why should I spend what time that I have here worried about every little bitty thing? And that's a prison, is it not? I mean,
It is.
They're telling you what you can and can't do. We live in a country where we're supposed to be free, and they've gone off the rails telling people they can't assemble, they can't Hell, you can't even protest now. They're arresting people for protesting. What?
Can't even say certain words on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's not. You down.
It's not essential.
Yep.
They say.
Yep.
Well, how much sense does that make in the United States of America?
Zero.
Yep.
Zero.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bull, what other questions have people asked for Butch in particular here?
Well, they want a Arkansas childhood story, and I think you should
You
tell
guys
this.
turn off your phones for a second. That's like lesson number 3 podcast.
I put mine on Do Not Disturb. Butch is new.
I'm pretty stupid.
A childhood story from Arkansas.
Yeah, and you told me a story once about your cousin and the house you lived in Arkansas. I need you to tell that story.
Well, it's really not. It's just the way we lived. But I lived in this little trailer park just outside of Pine Bluff when my mom and dad were divorced, and my mom lived in this trailer park. My dad lived out Sulphur Springs, and I would go stay. Well, when I was young, I'd stay all summer at my mom's almost, and I'd wake up in the morning on Saturday morning, and the old trailer I lived in, we slept on this little bed, and one of my cousins lived up the road, and he'd stick his head up through the hole in the floor and say, "Come on, let's go." And no telling what we'd get
there's
into.
a hole in the floor of the trailer?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my bedroom.
Like it's supposed to be there? Or
no, it was just rotting out.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Just a big hole. And instead of coming through the front door, he'd slip up under there and come up through the hole. Well, get up, let's go do stuff,
What about when it got cold?
Well, we had blankets.
Okay.
Yeah, just cover up.
See, now that speaks directly to what you were just saying about people were too scared and worried too much.
Right.
You got blankets.
And what did you do all day? Instead of staring at a tablet, instead of playing video games, watching TV, what did you do all day?
Oh, man, we'd just go get our bicycles and take off. We'd just be gone. Mm-hmm. If Mama wanted us, she'd holler for us. Mm-hmm. We'd go down to the creek, go crawdad fishing, go get in fights. It's just whatever.
Too.
It's just those things that kids do.
Huh?
You go, Lord, I can't remember all the stuff. It's just, you'd just be a kid.
Yeah.
You didn't stay in the house. When it started getting dark, you could hear Mama. It was just a sad thing. If you could see the street lights come on, it's time to be home.
Yep.
And people are worried to death about something that 99% of them ain't going to get. Mm-hmm. Come on, man. Do something.
And of the people that do get it, 99% of them aren't going to die.
Right. Like
now we have to say, we all have to say that at some point, there have been a lot of people that have died from this. At some level, that's a tragedy, and our heart goes out for those people. Everyone has to admit that one life lost is a tragedy, but that doesn't mean everyone should live in fear. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. It's terrible when people die of anything.
Yeah.
People die. That's part of life. You die. Now, you don't want to rush it, but good grief, live.
Yep.
The thing about all this being hemmed up and can't work and all that, it's not right now that's the issue. It's later. What's this going to create?
Yep.
How much poverty is this going to create? Because people don't know what it's like to be poor anymore. Now, some people do.
Yep.
Of course. Everybody. There's always going to be poor people.
In this country, the majority of people don't.
That's exactly right.
Most people don't have a hole in their trailer anymore.
Well, maybe they do. That's just.
And we're not talking about poor as in you got to eat McDonald's. We're talking about poor where you can't afford McDonald's.
Right.
That's what we're trying to say. I mean, we're trying to say back in the Depression when people stood in soup kitchen lines with their cup just to get a little cup of soup to go home and a little slice of moldy bread to divide it up for their family. That's what we're talking about. We're not saying I'm so poor I have to eat ramen noodles. that would have been great in 1935.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just things like sugar, you'd wait a month for.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. Well, I wouldn't be so fat.
Well, the people that are just listening to this podcast wouldn't have known unless you had said that.
Well,
but you know, speaking of living, people are also asking the question, when you guys first really made an appearance on YouTube with me was on the Smiths episode where we got the buses in a really bad situation in California, going to the Redwood Forest. What's that place called? That park, Redwood State Park, or something
like that.
Big Basin. Big Basin.
We were in Little Basin.
Yes, and that was when we looked at the map and we read everything, and you called the superintendent of this place, and they said, yeah, come on in, no problem. We've had many buses come before. So I wake up, the sun's coming up, it's still dark outside, and we are in a huge predicament. And I put that whole story on the Smiths. We'll link that in the description here. But that's when people really got to know you two, because you each were in a bus following each other through a terrible situation to be in a bus.
3 hours it took us to go 8 miles or 11 miles, something like that. Yeah, that was fun. Right on the cliffs and trees touching the side of the bus. That was fun. And Butch had it tougher because he was pulling a trailer. Yeah. But he also learned from my mistakes by following me. He could say, okay, well, I can't go that direction. I can't make that turn that sharp. So that was fun. It was fun content. The coffee
I was
maker,
loving it. I was making YouTube videos.
The coffee maker fell. Chris broke his coffee mug. The refrigerators kept opening up because we were on such weird angles.
And no major damage to either bus.
No, none at all. Then we ate hot dogs and grilled out.
That was the best part.
Yep. Drank some beer, had some fun. It was a good day.
You remember when we were driving back the next day, which didn't seem as bad going back because you guys were more prepared for it, I guess. But remember we saw that old truck down the cliff?
Yep. Yeah.
What in the world? Some old boy had
Yeah. Somebody just said, well, that truck's gone.
Yeah. And maybe someone was in it when it went down, too. I mean, you'd think.
Climbed back up and said,
you hope they climbed back up.
It might still be in there.
I didn't want to go look. I didn't want to say it.
Oh, wait here. I got, let's
got
see.
Another question from YouTube?
Yeah, I think so.
And while you're looking that up, you guys comment below if you want another one of these series, and if you have more questions for Bull or Butch. Bull is from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Butch is from small town Arkansas. Pine Bluff, Arkansas, both far from each other, but these boys have a lot in common, which is what I've learned being a Texan. I didn't really know until I started touring that there's common people everywhere. They just talk a little different. Even Australia and Canada and wherever, there's a lot of country boys. Yeah. Just talk a little different.
But Butch talks really different.
He thinks the same thing about you.
He says,
Michigan.
So Rebecca Hall, she's got a whole list of questions on here for you, Butch. Tell us about a time you were scared, like legitimately scared.
Wow.
No time to prepare or anything, right? Just go for it.
I don't know, any time I made worse than a C on a what do you call those, report card. Scared to death.
From your mama or your daddy?
My dad.
Yeah.
Well, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pops didn't pull no punches.
Is your pop still around?
Yeah.
What's he thinking this whole virus thing?
He's the same way I am. Of course, he takes more precautions because he's 150 years old. No, I think he's 71, 72.
And speaking of, tell us about your sister's father-in-law, who is a 2-time lung cancer survivor, 85 years old.
Yeah, and they found out today, I just saw today, it's been 14 days.
Okay.
So they cleared him.
So he got the virus 14 days ago.
or
in
they
isolation.
said he'd been in isolation for a long time, and he hadn't been in contact with other people.
Yep.
So how did he get it? They checked him with the swab. You know how they do the test.
Yeah.
Found out that he was COVID positive. They kept him for a day or maybe 2 in the hospital. Made sure he wasn't going to go bad. They sent him home with some stuff, and he just had low-grade fever, And then today I saw where it's been 14 days, so the incubation period's over.
So there's 2 extremely interesting things about this. One, he was 85.
Yeah, he was 80 years old at least.
And a 2-time lung cancer survivor. That sounds like the 2 scariest things for this virus right now, to be in that predicament. And he did fine.
Right.
Number 2, he was in isolation because the family knew that he was in danger. Yeah. So they put him in isolation before, in no contact with anybody, to make sure that he was sheltered at home and locked down, and he still got it.
Yeah, so I think he's been around longer than we know.
There's something we don't know about here, but that's what's so interesting, guys, for the listeners here, that there's way more to it than just sheltered home and we're all flatten the curve and we're fine.
Right? Didn't it, in December you got really sick, and January, and you had trouble breathing and everything. You had all the symptoms. You probably fought it off and had it. A couple of guys in the band said around January or December they got really sick. It lasted a couple of days like a flu, and
I don't get sick. Hardly ever. I don't get sick. That's a fluke.
Yeah.
That I get sick. Just don't. And to get that bad sick and that quick, but it was right about that time, January, and now I'm seeing where they think it was here longer than we know. So,
well, I heard something interesting yesterday, that the reason we're sheltering in place, the reason all the governments have said stay at home, is not to save lives, and that's the big misconception right now. Most people think shelter at home and you're saving lives. That's not the reason. The reason is they want to push it back farther so that they could hurry up and come up with some kind of vaccine, which could take up to 18 months. So staying at home is not, don't let people tell you you're saving lives by staying at home. No, you're just buying time. You're kicking the can down the road a little bit farther. But it's not going to cure the disease. It's not going to make it go away. It's not going
to help the economy.
so that's what it leads back to.
Yeah.
It's like, do we want to kick the can down the road so far that we're putting everybody in soup lines?
Yeah, we can't recover. At that, if it goes 18 months, everybody's going to be homeless,
and
wandering the streets.
If the goal is to kick the can down the road to protect people like the gentleman we're talking about, and he still gets it.
Right.
Oh my gosh, then we have some serious problems we need to address right now.
Yeah.
And the reason I even talk about this stuff is because I think everyone that's a little bit confused or getting mixed information, you need to realize, and I'm no scientist, I'm no politician, but it's important to just ask the questions. If you're using common sense, it's important to just go, excuse me, I have a question about this. Some of these things don't add up, and enough of us need to ask some of these hard questions. It's really important for us all collectively to go, I'm not just going to hear something and go with it. I'm going to wonder about a couple things. I'm going to use just some basic street knowledge on some of this and go, hang on, that doesn't exactly make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we discuss this daily while we're working on this truck. Like, how can they tell us to stay home? How can they tell us to wear a mask? How can they, doesn't the First Amendment protect us from that? But then the Stafford Act just kind of deletes that. It's such a strange time we're living in, but we're still living. So we're just going to continue to do what we need to do and living in fear. We're just living.
Yeah, and we're not feeling sorry for ourselves. You know, we're all eating our meals every day, and it's been, the weather's been absolutely beautiful. It's probably one of my favorite months. You know, in Texas, it's just incredible. And we've been restoring this old truck, and
Granger gets us Jimmy John's and Jersey Mike's.
So we're not complaining, you know.
Right.
But we're just trying to raise a couple questions here, and as we're talking and restoring this truck, and we've said a couple things in passing, and you guys have caught on to it. So I wanted to do like a good official sit down before we do get started, and so let us know. You know, comment below, hit them up on their Twitters, and tell us if you want to hear more, or if this is beneficial, or if we need to just shut our mouths and work on the truck.
Or continue to just do the off-the-cuff toolbox talks and just kind of surprise Butch with a question and see what comes out of his mouth.
Or maybe one of y'all is thinking we should all be 6 feet apart wearing masks right now. So there's that too.
Right. I hope you didn't throw any Ronas on this thing.
Yeah, there might be a couple of Ronas on that microphone.
What is microphone? Pepperonis.
Just pepperonis.
You know, you can't take any of that lightly per se, but if you can't laugh at a situation, you're in bad trouble.
Yeah.
And like Granger said, ask the questions. If you have questions, make sure you ask somebody. You know, if something's not adding up, just ask the question. What irritates me about all of that is what we call news media. They don't ask any of the questions like that.
Yep.
They just try to set up whoever they don't like in some kind of gotcha situation. They don't give a rip about giving anybody any news.
Yep. It's not Republican or Democrat.
Yeah,
Both of them.
I can't remember the last time the news was just fact.
Right.
Like here's the news: helicopter flew over and crashed.
Yeah.
There is none of that anymore. It's just like, we think it's this way, and then the one side says no, we think it's this way. Well, what happened to the facts?
They
Let's
leave that
find
up to your local 6 o'clock news.
Right, and I watch them, and they just report what the two
There
are
you go.
reporting. It just depends on what side they're on. So, it's been a long time since I've seen factual news. It's just all fake news.
And it's newspapers too, you know. Newspapers, they're all the same way. Newspapers, the TV, the cable networks, they're all, you just can't, you don't know what to believe.
Bananas.
It's bananas.
It's bananas. So you guys, thank you for watching. I'm running out of time here, and we got to get to go on this truck. Bull,
The
Butch,
boss.
I'll link their contact info in the description here. Let us know if you want to see more, and we're about to get to work. Thank you for watching and listening to the Granger Smith Podcast. Yee yee.
Yeah.
Yeah.